Ever since the inception of the AO scan, and even before the AO scan mobile, way before the AO scan mobile, we've been asked questions about the science. Are there papers, are there research that we can go look at and study? And our answer has always been, there's information out there, but it's not something we are putting out as our own, because we don't sell this as a diagnostic device. We sell this as an educational tool. And it's important that I say that right here at the beginning, because now I'm going to go into some of the stuff that we've told you we don't want to put out there, because it will lead, or can lead, people to look at this in something other than educational. So as we go through this information, please keep in mind the AO scanner is an educational tool. The principles and the technology and some of the workings of the AO scanner are based on really solid science and studies over almost 30 some odd years. And so that's what we'd like to go to. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the evolution of how the AO scan got to where it's at today. And I promise this won't be a lot of information, because a lot of that's already out there for you to look at in some of our other videos. I'm talking more about specifically the technology involved. So the science behind this, and really where all this started, we have to go back to the Russians. And one Russian in particular. He worked in the Russian military, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I apologize, but it's Dr. Nestevario. And like I say, it's up on the screen. You'll probably figure out how to say it better than I did. But he was commissioned with the military. He had found that the body's energy fields, he called them torids, spun at a specific way. And when they didn't spin correctly, there was an imbalance in the body. Now, I've highly simplified what he did, because what he did is absolutely remarkable. Well, after 1990, before 1990, he had been commissioned by the military in Russia to develop this system, which he penned the NLS, Nonlinear Scan System, to help with the Russian space program, to be able to analyze, measure the health of a cosmonaut, not only right here in their office, but when they're in the International Space Station, thousands of miles away, without any connection. And he did. He developed with other prominent Russian physicists, developed something that is absolutely remarkable, even to this day is remarkable. But after 1990, when the Soviet Union pretty much collapsed and changed, and everything changed, and the government allowed this technology to be privatized, and it did. And some of the physicists involved with the development of the early stages of this technology took it out and started putting out their own versions of the technology. And over time, there became knockoffs and copies and different versions of the exact same underlying technology. The AO scan that we sell now incorporated that technology in the beginning, but before then, back in 2006, we developed Inner Voice and the Cepheid modules. Those were developed by us almost 4 years before we ever learned about the NLS technology out of Russia. And you've heard me talk about this in other videos, that I ran into this technology at a medical convention in China. So anyways, we licensed that technology for about little more than 2 years. We love the technology. We put our Inner Voice and our Cepheid modules with the NLS system. And it was called the NLS 3D scanner. We called our version of it, because it had the other two modules, the AO scanner. So when Windows 10 came out, we started having all sorts of issues with the scanners that we had on the market. You'd be halfway through a scan and it would just freeze up, and you'd have to start all over again. And sometimes you'd have to completely reboot the whole computer, bring the system back up, and it made doing scans really hard. Not only were they long, now they were good, they were incredibly good, but they took forever to get done. So when that happened, we talked with our representative, who we licensed that technology from, and he said, there's nothing we can do. There's nobody out there that's going to rewrite this program. You're pretty much on your own. And so instead of trying to put Band-Aids on an old system, kind of like trying to put a new muffler on a 1950 car, when all the mufflers now are made for 2020 cars, just didn't make sense. And so we decided we would abandon the NLS 3D system, and it took us a little over 2 years. We built the AOScan system that you see now from the ground up, but utilizing some of the principles and technology that the Russians had developed, which to this day is still remarkable. But having the ability to have new software that was faster, cleaner, and obviously technology that was light years beyond what was available in the late 80s, we were able to take full body scans and take it all the way down to less than 20 minutes and get greater resolution and depth. And like I said, we didn't want to take that old system and just put a Band-Aid on it or make some patches in the software to where it would work through those glitches in Windows 10. And we didn't even take any of their graphics. We literally started from the ground up with our own graphics. We changed the user interface in the system. The user interface in the NLS systems out there is a great interface. We felt that it was dated. We felt it was a little clunky. We felt like we could do a little better job. And you'll see here in a few minutes some of how the imaging looked on that here in a second. And we thought that the way that they were analyzing the data could be done in a more simplified manner. Now remember, this was developed by physicists, pretty much for professional people to read and operate. And so they understood how to maneuver through that database and stuff really well, but it was a little harder for the lay people. So we came up with the system you see in the AOScan now. It's a 1 to 9, with 5 being the balance, and then you have 4 going high and 4 going low. That's a pretty simple, I mean, there's still a lot of data and a lot of information, but it's a little easier to know. If I'm in my 5s, I'm pretty much in balance, and if I'm high, I know I've got some stress, and if I'm low, I've got some weaknesses, and that just seemed to make better sense for us. And so that's the direction we went. But we went a step further. We didn't just redo that. We took our existing Cepheid module and our existing AOS, or the Intervoice, and we truly integrated that into this new platform that we had developed, which is now the scanner that you're seeing, the AOScan. We also did other things. We kind of broke out how it analyzes the frequencies in the body, or how it looks at those frequencies in the body. We kind of put the chemistry of the body in one thing, which we call the vitals, and we put all of the physical, structural, and muscular stuff in what we call the comprehensive. So it was a little cleaner, a little separate. They still talked back and forth. Those databases still talked back and forth. But if I just needed to do a quick look at my supplements or my chemistry, I could do that without having to go through all this other stuff. If I want to just, let's say I twisted my ankle, and I just want to look at what's going on with the muscles and the cartilage and the nerves in my ankle, I can literally go right there, click on that, do that scan. And so we just kind of felt that that was easier, and yet all of these databases talk back and forth, including Intervoice. So Intervoice, when you do your Intervoice, it leads us to, okay, we may want to look at these things in the vitals. We may want to look at these things in the comprehensive, because they literally are talking to each other. They're not 2 families or 3 families that have to go next door to talk to each other. These all live in the same house, the same platform, the same operational system. So it makes it clean, it makes it simple, it makes it fast. And that's what the AO scan is today. So that's where it started. So let's go back. We have the Russian physicists that developed it for their military, their space program. Then after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it became privatized to where it could be gone, and it has. There's over 20 different systems out there on the market today. In fact, I'll just scroll through some of those right now with you on the screen. You've got the original Metatron NLS. I think they've got several names of that now. The Opal, the Hunter, I can't remember all of them. You've got the BioStar, the Biocom, the Quantrascan, the Oberon, the 3D NLS, the Diacom NLS, and that's just to name a few. In my opinion, I believe that they're lacking in what they could be doing if they were modernized to what we have available to us today. In fact, if you were to go and look at all of those different systems, even just a cursory look, it wouldn't take very long before you realize that every single one of those is all working on the same old system, that same platform. Maybe a little bit different imaging or graphics or a little bit different user interface, but when the scans happen, it's the same images that come up, it's the same little dots and diamonds and squares. And it's really all basically the same as what it was 30 years ago. We're still not driving, most of us aren't driving 1970 Pintos anymore. And so it's kind of time that we get with the system, and that's what we've tried to do with the EOScan. One thing that we're really proud of with the EOScan is, and you've heard me say this, it'll never be finished because we continue to update it, enhance some of its features, to add new things, to make your experience with the scanner more fulfilling. We haven't seen that in any of the other devices on the market, and maybe they'll pick that up, and that's great if they do. But our mission and our goal is to deliver to you the absolute best scanning device on the market, giving you data that is the most reliable that we can get on the market. Now, that takes me back to the science. These are the questions that have come in. Where are the papers? Where are the white papers? Where's the research? And we've always been hesitant to put that out there because it causes people to make leaps that they shouldn't make. So let's go back. We're education, not diagnostic. When the NLS system first was introduced, it was diagnostic. Its whole nature, its whole purpose was to diagnose a cosmonaut, evaluate his or her health status, and this is where it gets exciting, be able to give them frequencies to help balance things that were out of balance, and doing all of it remotely, thousands of miles away. People are thinking, you can't do that. And we're living in this day and age where we use cell phones, we use all these wonderful things. We have satellite broadcast TV, and people can't understand how we can send a frequency to somebody remotely. And yet they were doing it in the late 80s, early 90s. This isn't even new, guys. We just were naive. We just weren't educated. We just didn't know. So we're back to the future. We're back to where we need to be. We're taking this where it needs to go. Okay, so let's talk about that. The Russian organizations that were working on this, they did studies, and I'm going to show some of these up on the screen. And I do this, like I say, with a little trepidation because I'm afraid that you'll take this where it shouldn't go. So please understand what we're showing you is research that was done on this technology, but not with the AO scanner, even though the technology is similar. But we use ours to educate us to make wiser decisions in our life, okay? Not how to diagnose somebody or ourselves. That's why we have a medical profession. Even with all its weaknesses, it's there for us, and we need to utilize that. So as you see some of these come up on the screen, I'm just going to show some of these. There's over 15 studies, 15 different studies that were done in hospitals, research centers on different diseases, ailments, conditions. In fact, I'll read these as they scroll on the screen. This is just a few of them. Lung lymphomas, tumors of the salivary glands, renal neoplasms, adrenal tumors, muscle injuries, vestibular system strokes, lumbar spine injuries, and many more. Do you see where we're headed with this? This is the validation that you're looking for, but that you cannot use. Now, let that sink in a bit. This shows you that the studies were done, and these studies will be available for you to download and read at your own. It's all real and it's all solid, but it's only to help you understand your equipment better, not to make you doctors or diagnosing your people, okay? So those are out there. Now, we did something a little different back in 2016. We actually had people with known conditions go in and have MRIs done. And I'm just showing you this here. You'll see some of these images on your screen, where here's an MRI of a condition, and the same day the MRI was done, a scan was done of the same area. And you'll see the correlation. Now, again, this is still with the 3D imaging. We have not redone that, and we probably won't redo that because it will cause people to do things we don't want them to do. But you can see from these images here, I'll take you to the one, if you take it at the bottom one, it was a 58-year-old male with 3 herniated discs. You'll see the 3 herniated discs in the MRI, and you'll see the dark spots on the scan, exactly the same. And you'll go through this with the brain, with the neck, with the back, with the different images. So you'll be able to look at these. Some of them are on the screen that you can see, but you'll see that this isn't voodoo. It isn't pie in the sky. This is real science that was done on this technology. There's a phrase out that says, where much is given, much is expected. And so we're giving you much, and we're expecting a great deal from you to be responsible with the information that we're giving you. When you were 8 years old, the first thing, most guys, when you were 8, 9 years old, you wanted to drive the car. And you knew how the steering wheel worked, and maybe some of you had enough length that you could reach the pedals. But our parents had enough wisdom to not give us the keys and say, hey, go drive the car, because we weren't mature enough. We weren't ready for that. In that same theme, this information is here to help you feel more secure with what you're doing. But don't take that to the point where you're giving the keys to the car to somebody who's not ready to drive. Okay? So look at this information because it's valuable, it's important, and it helps us understand that we really do have a gift in our hands. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars to go see a doctor and get all these scans done. You can do this stuff in your home and know, I've got some imbalances that I need to deal with and I need to look at. Now, we have these studies, and let me tell you something else that makes these studies really exciting, is they weren't all done in one place. They weren't done by one doctor. They weren't done in one hospital. In fact, I'll show this. Russia, Spain, Germany, Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, and more. And every one of those places, it was a different hospital and a different doctor or a team of doctors that did this research. And what they were doing with this research in all of these categories was validating, do these give us the same information as, an MRI or a CT scan or, a chemistry test? And the results were astounding. Better than 85% accurate. And even though these studies were done on the original NLS system, that is the system that the AO scan is developed around and based on. So it wasn't done on the current AO scan, but it was done on the platform that the AO scan runs on. And so, like I said, a lot of responsibility here. Keep it in the realm that you need to keep it in. Okay, so to kind of wrap this up, I hope this has been helpful for you to where you can understand why we're careful and why we are hesitant to give too much of this type of information out. Because even with the little bit that's out there, we've already have some people that have taken it to the level where you can get in trouble, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep the scanner, and you don't ever want to lose the ability to use your scanner by being irresponsible with your scanner. If you drive a car and you drive too fast and you become reckless, you lose your license. You continue to do that, you can lose your vehicle, and then you can't drive. This is a vehicle that is probably more horsepower than most people should have, but everybody can have if they're careful with. Okay? So let's just sum this back up. There's lots of NLS type systems on the market. They all are based on a good platform. They all provide good, useful information. They range in price and they range in features and functionality. And the studies that we've just referenced here are equally good for them as well. It's the same. What we want you to know is that everything that we've done in the AO scan is to fully integrate it to where it's not lots of little pieces. It's all one piece with different angles. Like we can look at your body through your voice, with the inner voice. We can look at your body through how you're functioning physically and see how that's tying back to your emotions or to diet or lifestyle, instead of having to look at each one individually and draw those conclusions separately. The AO scan is and always will be an educational tool, and one that we hope that you will grow to love and cherish like we do, because it is our baby that we have given to you. Use it, enjoy it, share it, and we'll see you next time. You know, ever since the inception of